one of the things that I was saying earlier is obviously I have my own dog in the race, so maybe I come up as biased, but I think that the DNC needs to start promoting more Democrat supporting influencers, and they need to wholly and completely cut off anybody that is not like willing to support the party. Like there should be no working with people that are not supporting your presidential candidate. That's wild. I think every step that the DNC has made in that direction towards a lot of these online type figures, the socialists or the super wacky progressives, I think is a huge waste of time and money. I think that the conservative messaging through all of their media is so 100% top down on point. I'm not saying that like all the progressives and the tankies need to like go away and be banned, but I don't think that the DNC should have any incentive whatsoever anymore to work with them. It's really disappointing that they do. There are so many better voices they could choose, I think.
I guess so. I guess like the thing that I don't really like, okay, like Republican politicians, like I don't know what money actually is being transferred or like what influence is being peddled. Like, okay, like what are Republicans doing to make people like Tim Pool popular? Like I don't know if is that really
Tim
like
Pool literally got an interview with Donald Trump.
No, but that was okay. So you're saying a lot of this, but Tim Pool doesn't just sprout out of the ground this year. Like these people have been popular for years and years now.
Sure, but they're also like part of the reason why I'm guessing they are is also, and why the RNC and everybody's going to work on them is because they carry the talking points 100%. Like there is a top-down 100% coalesced like messaging apparatus for every single, like I joke about this, right? Like they all defend Andrew Tate, they all think the vaccines were fake, they all think COVID was whatever, the lockdowns were evil, like they all have the exact same messaging. And then meanwhile, like on the other side, like what were some of the largest DNC events with people? Like AOC playing games with like, and Bernie Sanders showing up on like Twitch streams, which is a platform that didn't support Biden as the candidate. Like that's insane. Like why would you ever waste your time and your talent? Like they should be as far away from these platforms as possible. They should be going to like your Pod Save America guys more, or your Brian Tyler Cohen people more, or anybody else in like the media podcast sphere that could be even remotely supported. But like people that won't even support you as a candidate, it should just never ever be that case. That's a waste of time, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree in large part. Now, I'm not sure if you're saying that they should totally disengage from that media space. Like, okay, like when Ro Khanna does an interview on like Brianna Joy Gray's show.
Yeah, that should never happen. Or if they are doing it, it's to fight. It's combative. You're never going on, Like Brianna should have zero access to any Democratic candidates. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I used Ro Khanna as an example because he's extremely willing to do these combative interviews. Like when he'll take all these tough questions from like Brianna Joy Gray is like, like the interview that she had with him was like, well, I don't know if all these rapes in Israel are a real thing. And Ro Khanna's like, yeah, I mean, they are a real thing. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he's more willing to do those kind of adversarial interviews. But I mean, I don't know. It's one of the reasons why people have been like, no, this is crazy, kind of. But it's like, what, of the candidates who might materialize in 28, it's like, well, if I think a progressive is most likely to be like the person to get that anti-establishment code and like not turn off like so many people and actually inspire Biden voters and like the Democratic coalition to come out and vote, but also not be so progressive and left wing that like it does turn off some portion of people.
Well, no, hold on, wait. I want to be super ultra clear about this. It's not about being progressive and left wing to turn people off. It's about these people explicitly not supporting Joe Biden. This has nothing to do, it's not that they're too left or too progressive. They will not support the Democratic candidate.
No. I'm not talking about them. Yeah, I'm not saying, because I'm not saying Brianna Joy Gray should have no involvement in any presidential campaign ever. Like Bernie, one of Bernie's biggest L's is Brianna Joy Gray. Like that's one of his biggest L's. So I'm just saying like amongst like elected progressives, like who would, who's rising to the top there? Because I would just hate it if the Democrats' lesson from this election was like, oh yeah, Gavin Newsom's the guy we should nominate. Like that's like so not the right answer, like that's so wrong if you ask me, right? If I feel like the country at large is just in such a anti-establishment mood that you just can't put a guy like Newsom or Buttigieg or fucking people are saying Shapiro, like, no, like I don't know if these kind of people are going to be, in 2008 in a time of crisis. And I think in 2004, we will be in a similar time, or 2024. In 2008 in a time of crisis, we didn't nominate like liberal, moderate, Hillary Clinton. We nominated, black guy from Illinois who nobody had heard of named Barack Hussein Obama, who ran on a relatively progressive platform. He wins by a landslide. Like, I just think these things, there's a moment for these kind of populist left messages.
I mean, like, what else was going on too, though, right? Like,
It was a time of crisis.
Yeah. So, like, it could have been, Hillary theoretically could have won as well, like, just as easily in a landslide as well, right? And you had the Iraq War and everything, which I think was unpopular by then too. Yeah. So, I mean, like.
But it's always a question of I cannot imagine Hillary receiving the type of, generational, inspirational sort of push that Barack Obama received. And so I think the question is, like, would she have received as big of a landslide as Barack Obama? Like, the answer is almost certainly not. And I think that it's all, for me in 28, it's like, what is the candidate who is most likely to be that person who can run up the landslide in 2024? Because again, if Trump does what he says he's going to do, by 2024, we're in like the worst recession since the Great Depression, and unemployment is 10%, but it's also stagflation because of the tariffs. Like, things are going to be really bad in 2024. And so no matter who the Democrats nominate, they probably get a W, but it does matter who. Like, the difference between, a majority in both chambers or like a filibuster-proof majority and 300 seats in the House, that's a big difference in what you can actually accomplish during that time, right?
Yeah, true.
So, like if you have an environment where you have 56 Democratic senators and 300 members of the House, like, that's an environment where, like, you can make Puerto Rico and DC states, and you could do Supreme Court reform, and you could do a public option, and like you could raise the minimum wage, right? But if it's like, oh no, like, we have to listen to like the one or two most conservative members of the Senate that are Democrats, like, oh fuck, this is a rough one. So
yeah.
Anyway, but it sounds like you don't have much of a sense of, I guess, like, where messaging should go. I guess you said that the media, liberals and centrists should do more homegrown content, I guess.
We need a more powerful alt media sphere, I think, is important, because I think that the left alt media sphere is just dominated by people that fucking hate the Democratic Party, and I don't think that's healthy for the Democratic Party.
I mean, like, what do you think? I mean, how big of a deal do you think that is?
I don't know. It's hard to say. That's just one fix, one suggestion that I would give, though. But I mean, maybe at the end of the day, maybe that shit doesn't actually matter, and it's all vibes based on the economy and all that bullshit. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess I really just don't know how big of an issue that is. Like, okay, like, if like, is your average Trump supporter really, like, are they watching Tim Pool or like people like that? Right? Or is this just like 10 million?
Like that, you're including Joe Rogan too, right?
Yeah, I guess some people do really penetrate into the mainstream, but I feel like a lot of these people trade fanatical viewership. Like, there's probably like 10 million people who are like subscribed to all, 15 of these like bigger alternative media conservatives. And then there's maybe like another 10 million who pick out one or two, and then there's maybe another 10 million who maybe every now and then they catch a clip or so, you know what I mean? Like, and maybe that is a big, I don't know, I guess maybe that does like, make a huge difference in your electoral outcomes, but
yeah, because like how many, I guess, like, compare Joe Rogan's viewership or audience to CNN or Fox News or whatever, like, what's the difference? And then think about how concentrated that is among certain demographics, right? So, like, we didn't do as well with young people, I don't think, as we expected. This might be one of the first right-leaning. And, like, my guess is the average age of a Joe Rogan viewer is, like, 40 years younger, maybe 50 years younger than the average age of a CNN. So maybe those are, like, a really concentrated demographic that's just all basically held hostage by that podcast circuit. Maybe. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds like this is why we need to accelerate the DGG media company or whatever you were talking about. I mean, other than, because I mean, things like, okay, like Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire does seem to have been like pretty successful. I mean,
yeah.
Obviously, I'm just, and that's the kind of the big question for me is like, what do what does it actually look like to start like getting people to watch this type of, liberal, left-leaning, like pro-democratic content? And I guess maybe the people do exist, like your David Pakmans and your Brian Tyler Cohen type people, but yeah, and I guess these guys don't really compete with these guys don't really compete in terms of viewership. I mean, they're big channels, but you're right, they don't really compete with viewership with people like Joe Rogan or Tim Pool or people like that.
Yeah. Like all the top people were pointing out, like the top 10 and probably even more, the top 10 podcasts were all anti-Biden, or streamers were all anti-Biden. Like at some point, this has got to have some kind of impact, I would imagine, but.
I guess so. I guess it just depends on how left-leaning people react. Like I remember, like when Trump won, my understanding of like when Trump won, it was Bernie, but it was also a reaction to Trump winning that like caused organizations like the DSA to become so popular. And
what have they done?
No, I understand, but I'm saying like that could just happen again, where like people, they're sort of reactionarily going to these like very activist bases of people. And that happens to be like people like DSA or something like that captures a lot of this. And obviously it does depend on the chapter, to be fair. What is it, like DSA North Star? It's like super reformist, super electoralist, but then you've got like the DSA International that's like pro Venezuela and fucking
Yeah, so
like
you end up with
completely
this issue
insane.
where like every single funnel for radical extremist right wingers, no matter where the you're going, at the end of the day, you're supporting Trump 100%.